This
Val.
conference will now be recorded.
Okay, sounds like we're being recorded now. Um, we, particularly those of us in the Bozeman office, really enjoy working in Ennis. So I think it's really something that we're looking forward to. Let me talk about the how have laid this out, and it might there's a lot of words in it in the proposal. There's a lot of stuff that's there, but I'm going to go through really try to go through the high points of what we see happening over the next 8 months. Tonight is our project kickoff, and I think what we're trying to capture here is to hit the ground running, but to set us straight as to what your goals are for the overall project. Over the next 2 months, we're going to be doing a lot of outreach. We're going to be doing some stakeholder interviews. We'll be trying to facilitate some public input. We're going to rely on you to tell us who are those key players to talk to. And really, we're going to try to do a lot of background research, trying to dive into whatever existing documents that you might have. Dave is our GIS expert. He's going to spend some time really trying to dive into what some of the statistics are and get us to a point where we understand Ennis more than we do now. Maybe not quite as much as you do, but really try to get ourselves in this core team that you're seeing tonight uh, to a point where we can feel comfortable going forward. So that's the first phase of the project. That thing will culminate in another presentation like this. You'll probably hear us asking for a number of times to be able to meet with you, but we'll come back and we'll just talk about what we've heard. And it's good to hit that point at the end of that month and a half to 2 months down the road where we're really saying, okay, this is what we've heard, and we'll be able to bounce that back to you. So the next phase, phase two, is our analysis and findings phase. So we'll try to take the information that we've got, the information that you've told us, the goals that you've kind of set out, and really take that and begin analyzing it, but really also doing some public work. We'll have a general public meeting. Nora's going to talk about how we plan to do that if we're not out of the COVID era by then, and it's likely that we might have some ability to do some in person meeting, but otherwise, I think it's one of those things where we might have to use our tools that we've been using over the last year that really do some outreach and try to get people to come in and have meetings like this. What we might be doing is doing having some opportunities for people to look at boards, look at maps, and come into particular places that where we set up a presentation that we don't necessarily have to be at, but look at people and have them really go through and help us derive a lot of the planning issues that I think we'll get into. Nora's going to talk about some surveys and things like that that we'll also use, or that we have the capability. Our next phase, which is about month 5, so here we are, kind of middle of February. So looking down somewhere in the middle of the summer at the height of the tourist season, we'll be trying to illustrate and bring that data and the findings and looking at alternatives that are out there. Some of those master planning alternatives, trying to understand and again understand what kind of growth issues. I think we'll spend a lot of time tonight talking about growth, and then we'll look at some scenario planning. Scenario planning is really taking visioning and looking at the with the help of the steering committee, trying to craft some ideas and put those ideas in forms that you and the public can relate to and kick back to us. We've got during this time period, we'll do some preliminary planning, preliminary development alternatives. What are you looking at from a transportation issue that was a part of the RFP? And then again, at that stage, we'll look at one thing that you specifically asked us to do, and that was trying to figure out alternatives to employment issues. You're largely a tourist-based economy there, and I think there's been some goals, and I think we can talk about that tonight as to how do we look at what some of those employment alternatives. We've scheduled a half-day workshop for that, and really just to discuss some of those things. We'll talk about funding, maybe grant source funding, but also what are some of the things that are working in other areas that you might want to think about. And then we'll get into, towards the end, phase 4 and 5 are the preliminary master plan and the final master plan. So a lot of data, a lot of stuff in there. We've got this the next 8 months. I'll call it action packed, just packed with trying to do a lot of things, much of which really hinges on finding out from you and getting a lot of input in this next 2 months, next month and a half, and to 2 months during that process. So I'll stop there. I've just chatted for about 10 minutes, and is there any questions about that? Hopefully you've all read the scope of services, but if not, did that discussion just bring up any questions for you all?
I was just wondering if your guys' original scope and proposal has been changed at all, or is it still the same as it was? Have you made any revisions?
No, we have not. The contract, it really just attaches our proposed scope of services to that. I think the one thing that we didn't talk a lot about, but we did talk about during the interview, was a project website. And we want to be able to do that. Nora and Nicole can both talk about that tonight. So other than that, we didn't really change anything.
Anyone else? But I think what I'd like to know more about, and I apologize for being naive on it. What can be done in downtown Ennis and the surrounding areas that we're in control of in the town of Ennis? There isn't that much land. What can you possibly bring in that would create jobs?
Okay, so that's probably one of those goals. Our next item that we want to talk about, item 3, is to discuss project goals. So I would see that falling into that. I would also see, your question's got a number of parts to it. I think that I just talked about having that workshop of looking at potential funding sources. But reality is, I think when I think of Ennis, I do think of the downtown area. And I think looking at what are some of those potential opportunities that are out there, those low-hanging fruit things that are available for the planners in us to look to create. Does it mean an opportunity for us to do some streetscape planning and whatnot? So those are important things, and I appreciate the comment.
Hi, I do. I have a comment. This is Karen Ketchum, the library director in Ennis. Just so I don't repeat myself throughout the night, I just want to plant the seed of having the library as a partner through this community process wherever we can. Thank you.
When you say that, do you say that in terms of offering the library and as a partner?
So I guess we'll define that as the night goes on, as the process goes on. I can see our role varying in, as the needs present themselves.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Any other comments on the scope issue? Hey, Nora, I wonder if you could bring up the map. Is that possible?
My connectivity, I think, is just really bad. When I was sharing my screen, everything was breaking up. If we can have Nicole share her screen.
I have it.
That's
Why don't
possible.
I do that? But I'm not sure how to do that.
I think somebody needs to let you.
Somebody needs to let me share. Could you let me share? Somebody enable me. So yeah, it says I got to ask you to make me the presenter.
You just locked the meeting.
Oh, so she's not in the room?
No, she's sitting right behind us.
Okay.
I'm getting there, Wayne.
Gotcha.
Well, it keeps moving around on
Jumping
you.
around on me. Wow.
There we go. And you lock the meeting again.
Just hit that little switch to the right. There you go.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay, Wayne.
Open system preferences. Yeah, it's just not. Yeah, it is just not working. I think in the future we're going to try and really use Zoom, and it's hopefully we can get that. You don't need a license on your end to use it, but it's a much more forgiving program.
Okay, we'll have our IT guy look at it and get it set up. We use this one because this is the one we use for everything.
Yeah. It's we used to use it years ago, but it's I think we live on Zoom. At any rate, I'm having trouble. I'm not able to share. Dave, is this? I mean, you're a little bit more tech savvy? Are you able to do this?
I mean, I give it a shot. I probably have the best connection being in the office, but I could, if somebody allows me to share, I could at least open up.
Could you make Dave the guy?
Yeah, she's moving to him.
Isn't he on his phone though?
My just for audio, so shouldn't be bad. There's screen. Go. Well, here's what we can use.
We could use that. Nora had a map, but that's fine. So I guess, moving into the project goals, the way that I'd like to kind of do this is to go around the table. And again, as I said earlier, this is largely a listening session for us. So we're going to facilitate kind of the goals, goal setting session for this. So I'd like you to think about this in terms of what is it that you want to accomplish. And one of you talked about downtown Ennis and, you know, the development. That's kind of a goal, project goal. What do you want to get out of this? Again, we've been specific about the tasks, about what we're going to do, but really the accomplishments of what is really going to be beneficial for you. What are those things that you want to try to get out of the plan? So I'll toss that out, and maybe Blake, and maybe you could start.
Okay, you had already talked about the employment issues a little bit. Finding some more employment opportunities in here that don't pollute our area, but are more technologically sound that way. Housing is a huge, huge deal, and hopefully we're starting the process of tackling that. The North 40.
And while you're talking about housing, let's zero in on that for a second, because you said housing's a big issue. What is the housing situation in your view? Lack of housing, just pure lack of housing? Is it affordable housing, or is it we're gonna get waylaid here?
Okay, yeah, I'll quickly go over it. Right now, just for instance, the last time I looked, there are 2 properties in the town of Ennis that are available for people to live in. People move here, there's nowhere for them to go to. It's a major issue because we're growing at a real quick rate. Like I said, we are working on that one. That's something I think we really need to look at. And the North 40, everyone else is going to talk about the downtown. That's not as big of a deal to me, but the North 40 project section is a big opportunity for housing and how we develop that area. We've had a lot of great ideas as far as we've had shops put in there, businesses of some sort, housing, but to make it almost an extension of the downtown. To me, that's
Dave, can you zoom in and maybe let's talk about where is the North 40 project?
It's kind of that northernmost peninsula of the town of Ennis with the
There you go.
the
Right
2
there.
ovals.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
That's
I'm familiar with it. I get coffee there.
yes, at Maples.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, the employment is obviously, I'll just recap the employment, the housing is almost our number one thing, because without the housing, there's no growing in this place. We're stuck in the water, and you have to have housing for people to work. We don't even have enough housing for the people to be able to work here in the summer. They're living 3, 4, 5 people in a house, and it's just not, it's not reasonable, and it's not conducive to our growing. Then one other,
Blake, is it that there's lots but no one's built a house?
they're working on building that, and that North 40 is about the only spot in town, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but it's the only spot really in town where you can build.
It's a pure lack of inventory then.
Yes. Thanks. I could have started out with that.
Yeah.
You guys could have jumped in. And then one other thing I'll throw in there on top of that is our entrance corridors coming to town, how we can make those more attractive, because in my opinion, when they're coming into town, they're not the greatest looking things, and ways that we can make coming into town good. You come in the one side, we've got the dump, you got a bunch of buildings, the D&D lot, and then kind of coming in from is that the north side, over by Willie's?
No, that's the east side.
East side of town is actually not a bad thing, but coming into the other 2 sides, it's just not as attractive as we could have it. I think that we could make it a better experience for people when they come in.
Yeah, I guess my opinion, I've been doing it forever, but you do come in through a kind of a light industrial area. I would say that the sense of arrival is kind of sketchy until you get to the intersection, to the main intersection, and what I call is the Core 10 steel fishing guy. I'm not sure what he's actually called, but that's what I call him. But that sense of arrival is you do have some kind of back of house entry things that are there, and that's fine. But yeah, we're here to listen to you.
I'd like to see that sense of arrival happen right at where the peninsula, the very north portion of town starts, which would be right at Vievich's shop. What's that road called?
Mountain View Road.
Mountain View, which is right there. That would be like the ideal spot for kind of your sense of arrival. So, something like I don't know, just to throw something out there, like an archway or a sign.
So I got to ask the question, and it's might be jumping ahead a little bit, but you talked about a lack of inventory, and if we could go back to the town map, one of those things are, how do you feel about expanding the town boundaries, the actual jurisdictional boundaries?
Well, I think before we even consider that, before you consider anything, we first have to find out how much our lagoon can handle.
That's already in progress.
Well,
Yeah, we already have
that's
been.
important, because if it can't handle progress, there's no sense going any further.
So you're currently doing a wastewater analysis or assessment of what your lagoons are, when they're showing there on the right.
Yes, Great West is started. Sorry, John. Great West, we just got that going. They are starting the process just because we've got 3 big projects that are potential, and then another one that's outside of that. And before we can really make any decisions as to what we can do, these guys need to have what we can actually do, what we need to do to grow that as well. So we're in the process of doing that. I'm not sure what the time frame on that is exactly, but the process has started.
Okay. Is there somebody that we could talk to? And because that is a major issue of understanding capacity of utilities. Obviously, you can't grow without capacity, and you are not unique in the state of Montana where pinch points are arriving at the water and wastewater capacity.
Well, I know that, and Ginger, correct me on this one if I'm wrong, I know a few years ago we had this done and we were in really good shape, but we're a little bit more nervous now that we've got these projects coming in. That's why we went ahead and asked for it. And I can get you the information on that. Kelly Elster is our Public Works Director. He's not here tonight, but he's going to be a huge help with this. And then we'll get you the contact to Great West for the gentleman that's doing that project as well.
How do you spell Kelly's last name?
Elser.
Okay.
Have you studied if I see a bunch of empty or vacant lots here, have you studied what would happen if those just built out within your city, within the town by itself?
Well, that's why we started that, because there are several lots that are starting already. How far into that? Phase 2, 3?
Of what, the North 40?
Yeah.
They're in phase 5. So if you go to the North 40 up there, there's going to be several, you can see all those single family lots there that are subdivided more. Those are all sold, and those are continued, those are starting to build.
Okay. And I assume that every one of these platted lots have got will serve letters to them.
Yes, they are, yep, they are part of, they are our priority. And so that's when those, if you see those larger blocks on the west side of the North 40, those are the ones that have been proposed to have, and I don't know, and I'm sorry to join in late, those are where some folks are looking to put apartment buildings in.
Multifamily? Yeah,
Yes, multifamily.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, we have three kind of major developments proposed for that area. The whole northern section would be all apartments and condos and live work buildings. And we should get you guys some of the information on that too, since it's kind of ongoing right now.
Yeah, is that a PUD development?
It's not a PUD. Those lots have already been, yeah, so they're not proposing them as a PUD currently. So they were just looking to work within our zoning.
Okay.
And two of the projects fit our, one definitely fits our zoning. The other one is like 3/4 of the way there. And then the other one, the major one that's proposed, does not fit our density requirements. So they exceed our density requirements by, by 2.25 times. Our current highest density is 8 units per acre, and they're looking to put 18 units per acre into those lots. So.
I know you've talked about maybe changing some of is that desirable for you to maybe begin to look at those, or is that just out of the question, that type of density in anywhere in Ennis?
Actually, in our proposed zoning, which I can forward to you, we do have we see the need for a higher density area, and so it's in the proposed zoning to go up to 12 units per acre. We thought that was a good way to grow. So, and then in your question, sorry to kind of divert to your question about annexation, I think the town would be smart to consider annexation and of different areas. I did talk with the attorney from Missoula who's been through annexation processes a couple of times to the Montana Supreme Court, and he said to annex properties in, you need to just have a plan to provide water and sewer services. You don't have to be ready to install it. And a plan could be like a special improvement district or something along those lines. Because as we see, we don't want to, as a community that I guess end up landlocked and then being the hub and providing the services to all those outlying folks that utilize the service but don't pay for them. So
that maybe taking a step back in the discussions of the goals, and asking a question that may be more of a 30,000 foot question is, how do you feel as you on the council, how do you feel about expanded growth? Is that something you're embracing, or is that does that scare you?
Would you repeat that, please?
Well, I guess the question is, how do you feel about allowing or encouraging growth?
I have nothing against growth. But we have a lagoon system that has a capacity of X amount. You can't go beyond, we're committed to the North 40.
I think you're going a little bit deeper into the question. He's just asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I can say we want growth. I think you want to call it controlled growth to a point. We want growth. That's part of what you're saying. That's a little bit deeper in, John. But
that's right.
That's my opinion, is we want growth, and we're going to grow whether we want to or not, but we want to be able to control what's happening as it goes on.
Mm-hmm.
I
And,
would, yeah, I would agree with
and
you.
I can tell you that controlled growth, by having that within the limits of the municipality, you're going to be able to control it if you're recognizing that it's coming at you anyway, controlling it internal to the town rather than having it develop in the county. Those are always issues, but again, great insight on that.
Well, you take Paul McMullen's project north of town. You can build a house there, and they've built some beautiful homes. But you also have to spend about $10,000 for a water system that you'll be able to drink your water. It's polluted. I'd love to have those people annexed into the city, but you can't annex anything until you know what your lagoon's capable of handling.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask this question.
The golf course has the same problems. They have the same problems with the water. And it's a good $10,000 to put that system in the house. People are doing it because they want to live over here. But even in downtown Ennis, there isn't that much available for sale, for the future. You can have all the apartments you want over here, but if you don't have any work to go with it, what do people have to do? They're either going to have to go to Big Sky or they're going to have to go to Bozeman. And that's not a joke, running for that every day from Ennis to Bozeman.
And you're right, but there again, I think you're jumping ahead of us again.
That's all right. That's okay. Don't worry.
I think, I personally think we should allow growth, not a massive expansion in growth, but we should allow the growth to happen, as much as we can and, guide it to where it needs to be. So I guess pretty much the consensus is that we do want growth. We just want to make sure we do it right.
Well, we can't make mistakes.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's what we see that it's coming and that we need to do it right. We still want to, I think one of our biggest things is, and I can personally say I moved to Ennis for the sense of community. And so I don't want to lose that. I know that's probably, you can't have your cake and have it too, but to really maintain that sense of community without being more of a bedroom community, whether it be to Big Sky or to Bozeman, we still want to retain our identity as Ennis, a small western town, with cowboys and fishermen. And to Mr. Bancroft's note on, the Valley Garden, the Skyview subdivisions, I do see that, I think those properties weren't annexed into town because at the time, the town didn't have the capacity when those subdivisions went in, and so they went out and did their own thing. And I think now we're realizing, maybe they should have bit the bullet then and upgraded the system and included them into that. So it's almost like having a phased approach to it. Like, okay, we'll annex in, and then once we get to so many things, then we're gonna have to upgrade our sewer system. And just to have a really planned out, comprehensive approach to it.
We've talked a lot about the wastewater issue, and then you touched a little bit on potable water. Can you tell me, is that a seriously limited quantity, or is it more the wastewater capabilities at this point?
I think the water's our bigger concern at this point in time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe the water, because how many years ago did they bought 2 acres out by the rodeo grounds?
And we got a grant from the state, and they dug the well, and the best they could get out of it was 80 gallons a minute. We needed a minimum of 400.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 wells in town, and they're both doing very good. But if one goes down, the rest of the town is gonna suffer.
Actually, that's not true because one did go down and the other one, right now, currently, the
Well,
one,
occupancy-
hang on a second, one of our wells right now is essentially running the town. We just dealt with this just in the last few weeks. One of the wells went down, the other one kicked in and maintained the town's current system. What the growth of it is where our concern is at on that one. Yeah, unfortunately, we had to find that out the hard way.
So we'll
Because
probably,
our wells failed.
we'll probably need to add a well if we're gonna do any growing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Great West is looking into our water also, not just.
Have you looked at, is there, do you have the capacity or had any of the experience to put in, I guess, zones that would allow you to have payback? Or have you encouraged developers to do this on their own and to provide that and utilize some form of a latecomers agreement for future folks tapping on? Or is this, they're expecting you to take, you as the city to take the lead and provide that to them?
I think this is something that just was brought to our attention. There is a possible development going in right by the wastewater treatment ponds there. And it was brought to our attention that maybe we would do the latecomer, like you were saying, if that's what it's called, where we ask them to put in a well and connect it to the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but currently, I think I'll jump in there. Currently, right now, if you build in the town, you are required to hook up into the water and sewer. If we went into a expansion of the town, that's where I think is that the special district kind of thing that we would
Yeah,
use.
well, our newest subdivision, the North 40, they incurred the cost of putting all the water and sewer in. The town did not do that. So I guess if that's what you mean by the latecomer situation, yeah, so, yes, so, I guess, yeah, our best example would be North 40, and they took on the cost, and I think that's where we're at as a town. I don't know what my colleagues think, but yeah, if you're looking to annex and to subdivide, property to add into town, that you're gonna incur the costs of installing the, water and sewer. To say that that couldn't be like a special improvement district where they bonded out over 20 years, I think that would, that's something that could be looked at too. But as it stands, that's our most current project.
Like, if we were to move, that's something that.
Goals again. We touched on maybe some of those high ends of not being a bedroom community. I love that term. We want to be cowboys and fishermen. What are some of the other maybe overarching goals that you want to accomplish as a part of this master plan?
You were talking infrastructure, but not specifically a wall.
Well, that's kind of what they were talking about there. Sorry, Ginger just asked the question, if we could have the developer, if we needed a third well, put that in, but that's kind of what was gonna happen up on over by the lagoon project, if we see that one. I'm sure it's coming at one point or another. So I think that's something we definitely could ask for.
Yeah. Wayne's question was, what are our other overreaching goals for this master plan?
Yeah, I'd already started, then we'll move on to you guys. Throw it out there. I threw in, sorry, Lisa's come in, we had introduced her, she wasn't here, but we introduced you.
Okay.
I put in there, and they talked about employment issues, the housing, North 40 development, and then the corridors coming into town as well, so we don't jump back over the same things, or the things that I think are important.
And I would throw in, and this is the hill I'm gonna die on, but once we get all these people, they need amenities as well. They need parks. They need, you know, if we're gonna have young families move here, you know, they're gonna need a place for their kids to get wet, you know, so whether it be a splash park, a pool, I know that's been talked about for a long time, but other amenities, whether it means, you know, expanding Lions Club Park, or when other subdivisions come in, you know, I know they do have a park requirement, but like the ones in the North 40 right now, they're just, you know, they're just mowed grass and a few trees. So I think we also need, and, you know, people move out to the west for recreational types of things, and to draw those young families in and make, you know, have them want to be here, we need, you know, nice playgrounds, and I'm gonna say it, we're gonna need sidewalks, whether it be for young people or for old people, you know, that multi-generational activity, kind of that active community kind of thing. 'Cause we want people to be able to walk downtown and go to our great shops that are there, and to eat at our restaurants, and I guess that falls into, again, that sense of community where we have a strong corridor, cute downtown, that's financially sustainable, and we're not, you know, we're not just, you know, all of our folks just all work in Big Sky. You know, when my sister came here and visited me, and I was like, oh, meet this person, she's like, your friends are the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, because she lives in DC where everyone's a federal employee. And so I was really proud of that we have a really strong sense of entrepreneurship here. I think we can foster that through the town, and draw those people in. So that was a little wordy, but I guess that's what I would say. So.
This is Karen. Can I jump in just for a moment to add on to Lisa's comments? You know, just as not as a matter of employment or housing, but identify through this process how to add layers of richness and experiences for our community members, whether it be recreation or arts and humanities or community education, to provide those meaningful avenues for residents as well as the tourist economy.
That's great. Thank you, Karen.
I wanted to bring up something. I agree with the mayor when he said, when our well went down, we were okay to do the other one. And that took care of everything. That's only because it's the winter and the demand is not that much. But the situation has always been, if it happened during the summer, we could still, you know, give water to everybody, but we'd have to restrict a ton of it. Here, a lot of people from Ennis leave and head south for the winter. They're not using the water, so they don't need as much. But in the summer, I put a well in my own house, had one dug, and my wife was blowing 50 to 60,000 gallons of water a month just to make the grass green. I figured that if she would let me, I'd put the well in, which would pay for itself in 4 years, which it did. And I'm fortunate to have a well, but not everybody can. It's the only thing I'm saying is we need another well, no matter what.
Okay.
And fortunately, the one by the rodeo didn't work out. But I don't know how far or how deep you have to go to figure out how many gallons of water you need. You need 400 gallons a minimum, or in that general area. They have to find an area that was open that we could drill a well and get that capacity of water. Then we can service more people.
Can we understand? We need another well.
Well, we own, and Ginger, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we own property up on top of the hill, Virginia sit right up the hill, Antelope Meadows. And there was talk about, it's got that concrete enclave on it.
It's got a concrete water tank.
Right. That's a place where we could dig a well, a potential well, But again, we put $100,000 out for this other one and only got 80 gallons a minute. We need something better. And if that's up on the hill, if we own that and they can get that kind of water, that would be the solution to your problem.
Okay, but that's not, again, we're not talking about that. Let's stick to the point.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of go back to the broader, not the specific.
Right.
I guess my broader ideas were traffic control, walkability, what we're gonna do with our new zoning. We're gonna try to redraw. Are we gonna annex in some areas? And then to go back with Blake, housing is a big issue. How are we gonna guide the housing market and, well, I guess not market, but our housing issue and then jobs. And I think all that stuff kind of blends together in the end, but it's just, you gotta do it in the right order, I guess. You know, you need housing before you can have jobs. And then once you get all the people in here with the jobs and the housing, then you're gonna need to deal with the traffic and the walkability and the water and the sewer and all that, all goes together.
Let's talk about, let's look towards wrapping this piece up in the next 5 minutes, and then we'll move over to the community engagement process, more of how are we going to do this next phase. So we haven't talked about schools, and we're curious about that. That's something that's always a part of looking at, and we'll talk to the school district, but from your perspective,
The schools in the
how
process.
how did that, what are some of the
The school's in the process right now of looking for an
Go ahead.
engineer. And they're planning on increasing the size of the high school. That's in the work plans right now.
Maybe Karen can touch on that for us. Karen actually sits on the school board.
So let me know if you can hear me. I'm having a little connectivity issue.
Yep.
So yes, Donna's correct. The school has experienced a period of slow growth over the last decade, and it is to the point where classrooms are to maximum capacity, and we are looking to expand, and also in step with community growth.
We've been talking about growth issues and growth discussions, and got into some of the technical issues as it relates to things like trails and connectivity. The old Safe Routes to Schools programs. Are those issues at all? Are there, outside of capacity for providing students with bricks and mortar, are there anything out there that relates to the town that is either problematic or could be improved, or something that's on your radar from a school perspective, or even from your knowledge of the youth within Ennis?
I'm not sure I understand the question. What would be an example?
Well, like how do kids get there? Is there struggles for kids to get to school? Do they walk to school? Is there
so kids, so it's pretty well, we have a large bus route at the school, a large rural component, and the system is in place. The trouble is actually finding route drivers. That's the issue. So currently for the rural residents, the school has had to reduce the amount of routes And then also, through recent conditions, reduce the town route. So a lot of it, I would say the majority of kids get to school by parent drop off. And the kids who live within the town limits, there are quite a few who walk and ride their bikes.
One of the things, the problem with the school, when they want to do anything, they don't have that much room to do anything, and then they end up down the Lions Club Park, which is one area to get them off the streets, but then getting down there is another dangerous thing. But that's the only place that they can really, do any track running, if you want to call it that, other than their field that they have here in town. But that'd be the only two places that they have an opportunity to go, beyond the school.
Mm-hmm.
And doing their meets and things like that.
And there's also, I don't know if this goes to your question, but the school district owns that large area right there on the map at the north section of the North 40 where there's those 3 baseball diamonds. And I think that's a potential area where they might build
I can see them.
next school.
Yep, that 10 acres holds the bus barn, the bus facilities out there. And recently, with a grant, that those diamonds were developed and have future plans, more plans for development as far as playgrounds or look at more activity schedules out there. But I think it's 10 acres total.
And I believe, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, the school worked on their strategic plan. I think one of the components is that they wanted to maintain the core of the school in town. That was one of the, I don't know if that made it to a final document or not, or what their thoughts were there, was that they wanted to.
Yeah, so that particular thought was based on the last school expansion and public comment. The last round of the strategic plan didn't address that particularly. I think they just relied on past comments. However, I think that the current expansion they're looking at, the preference would be to stay where it is, but also depends on growth. Yeah. And how far we want to look into the future.
Maybe that's a good segue into my last probing question. You had parks and recreation, parks and trails as kind of a component that you wanted to look at a little bit. Can you talk to what some of the needs are, maybe where you excel or maybe where you don't?
Yeah, I think we don't excel in very near, like within walking distance trail systems. I mean, we have one kind of road right on the other side of the river from town, the west side of the river. There's a section where there's a campground, and that's pretty much the only trail that you could even get to on foot from town. So,
and the inhibitor there is crossing the bridge as a pedestrian.
Yeah,
or on a bike is tricky. And I would say, where we're strong is, there was a group that helped out getting a trail it was part of the Safe Routes to School, from the school up to like the Valley Garden Golf Village area. The North 40 will be all required to have sidewalks. So that will lead into school. But all of those lower, even on Conley Street, we lack sidewalks. I mean, there's only sidewalks on Main Street. And then when you get towards the east end of town, they're only on one side of the road. And on the west side, there's only on one side too as well. And when we looked at Safe Routes to School plan, since the school is centrally located, it pretty much covered all of Ennis, that it would be considered part of that, area. You know, I think if people had the facilities, they would be able to utilize them. You know, it's kind of, if you build it, they will come.
So would you say a fair statement is that Ennis is not really a walkable friendly community?
It's getting there. We've made some strides. We did a project in 2017 where we put sidewalks up by the nursing home and at the Y intersection. Some of those areas are still a little bit uncomfortable to walk along, even though the sidewalk facilities are there. And I think that could be mitigated with some shrubbery, some delineation between the sidewalk area and the highway. But it's getting there. There's a sidewalk. The sidewalk used to end downtown at the old IGA grocery store, and then now it's completed down to Lions Club Park. That one is used heavily because people will park at Lions Club Park and then walk into town.
I think we would be good to, if we could somehow get a sidewalk across the bridge that goes across the river.
Yeah, a pedestrian bridge across that way.
Or somehow add on a sidewalk to the current bridge.
Yeah, like a
Yeah. Okay.
That would be part of the state, and they would have an awful lot to say about it.
Yeah.
But it can still be part of our plan.
Yeah. And then there's
But that's the only safest way that they could get across, is to have a walkway for that, because there's no walkway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, that trail out there is great, it's, a lot of people walk their dog out there or whatever. It also would help with, that fishing access gets really busy in the summertime with all the fishing boats. And if people could walk and use that trail, it would alleviate, both like fishermen picking up clients, they could walk safely back to town, or going the other way, if people are able to walk their dog across the bridge as opposed to driving over there, taking up a parking spot and then using the trail. I think it would help with our parking issue too in a couple different ways.
I just thought of something really important, if you don't mind that I bring it up, talking about this. And that is the entry into town over the bridge. We're having issues with mainly semi drivers coming in from that side of town and not realizing, like at night during, when it's overcast and there's a new moon, and these semi drivers, they come in and they don't realize that they're coming into a town. And so they're not slowing down, they're not and they're crashing into our town. And this has happened multiple times. So I think a big issue to address would be to kind of make a entryway lighting and, some sort of something that says, hey, you're entering a town.
I think lighting has an awful lot to do with it.
That's a very good point.
And, I totally agree with you. But lighting at night, when you come in, you don't really realize you're into a town until after you've crossed the bridge.
Right.
And the other trouble is you're not looking at the speeding signs.
Yeah.
Because they're blind. And the last sign that you're going to see before you enter town is, your speed is, and it's a 25-mile-an-hour zone.
Yeah.
And what they need is slower speed and more enforcement.
Right.
And I mean real enforcement, so that they understand,
Correct.
hey, we're not against trucks, but you are going to drive accordingly.
Right.
And if you don't, you're going to pay handsomely.
Right, and I think that this particular area of town might be something good to focus on for a plan or a project, because this is probably the best entry into town. You're coming over the Madison River.
You've got those nice hotels with the big green lawns. I think it's the one that rated highest on our super host.
Yeah, and we have our park right there, and it'd be nice to just have like some thing that encompasses, an entry, lighting, and then, pedestrian walkway across the bridge, you know, some.
Yeah. And
Something
that
like
gentleman that owns that large acreage there on the west side of the river.
Roy
But on the-
Washburn.
Yep, Dr. Washburn and his wife Barbara have indicated to me that they would be interested in working with the town to utilize that property in some capacity. They didn't really.
What's the name of it? Dr. Washburn's property?
Yeah, it's under, it's under the, I think on the cadastral, it's under Pensco Trust, PENSCO. But they own that. I think it's like, it used to be the old rodeo grounds way back in the day. It has hydrology issues there. Not so much flooding from the river, but more high groundwater can seep up in through there in certain winters. But they,
Gorton?
not necessarily the gorge, because there's been times where the river hasn't gorged, but in there, the water doesn't overflow from the Madison, but I don't know, it's something with the water there, the groundwater will rise up right there and then freeze. So.
Okay.
It's a useless land.
I want to try to move us along a little bit.
Sure.
Nora, if you could talk about maybe what we've got as a community engagement plan. I don't know if you're still having issues, or if we can provide you, Dave, with the kind of the spreadsheets that you've got.
Oh, sure, we can do that. I mean, I don't think it really shows much besides the fact that we've, begun research on who some of the key stakeholders that we'd like to speak to might be. But I think what's important is that we really want to work with you to craft a community engagement plan, because you know your community best, and we'll apply our expertise in terms of community engagement, but we'll need some background information from you to start in terms of, where people go, what people do, what the best way to reach people is, and then we can work with you to kind of figure out what the best plan is, how we can reach the most people using our budget wisely. So we've got quite a few tools that we traditionally use. I know Wayne mentioned before about creating a project website. We find that to be really helpful. Kind of a landing page gives you information about the project, and then also provides tools for the public to engage. So we have the capability to kind of host a project website within kind of the umbrella of our company's website. And that's just a really big cost saver, but we're also able to have tools on there. We can host an online survey. We'll have like a general comment box, and we can even just have PDFs on there for folks to download once we have kind of draft plans or elements of the plan that we want to the community to be able to see and download for themselves. So that's kind of our plan at the moment is to create a project website and then kind of use existing social media platforms within the town to kind of leverage what their current following is. I know I saw that there were quite a few Facebook pages. The Chamber of Commerce has one, the Ask Ennis Montana Facebook group. Just a couple of those that we can just use what they've already built and get information out about events or kind of promoting the website if we've got a survey up. And then in terms of meetings, I'm not quite sure where you guys are with in-person events and stuff like that. It seems like probably the first couple months of this project most things are going to need to be virtual, but I'll defer to you and what the community is comfortable with in terms of that. But we're really experienced in doing virtual public meetings. So we've got a couple different options with Zoom that we can use to engage folks that way virtually. But then we also think it's really important to to have some of the traditional methods of getting the word out, you know, newspaper ads, doing, you know, flyers and stuff like that. If you guys will host any kind of farmer's market, having a booth, something like that, when those options are available. And then, yeah, so that's kind of like the public piece, but then what's another important part of it is these kind of community leaders and stakeholders. So we have started a list, but we'll definitely rely on you to identify those folks that we want to speak with and have some more interview style conversations where we can get information from kind of those key community members. And then in terms of public relations, is there someone in your group that does PR that could potentially help facilitate? Sometimes, you know, we will take care of creating content for distribution, but we would be looking for maybe some help in terms of getting stuff out in terms of distribution. Is there someone in town that kind of handles that for you guys?
Unfortunately, no. That would be really helpful. But I think we could. Oh, go ahead, Christy.
Like, how much time are we looking at here, Nora?
Well, I'm just thinking, you know, for example, if we're trying to get a newspaper ad out, you know, we would create the ad, but we'd be looking for somebody to get in contact with whatever newspapers you think are
I'm
most.
I'm willing to help you with that kind of stuff.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's super helpful. And then obviously being a resource with the library would be great. Posting flyers, having postcards, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's
post office too. I think we should make that a central place since everybody from city kind of has to go to the post office or goes to the post office. We can make that and post where we post stuff and let everybody know where we're going to put stuff. I'm totally willing to help with that.
Yeah, and then we can also reach out to, there's some, you know, our community is really great at volunteering. There's a couple of big organizations there that maybe we could reach out to and just to, you know, do kind of the chain mail thing, give it to them so they can distribute it to their members, you know, the chamber, the Lions Club, the Women's Club, you know, the hospital. I think getting them to participate would be great too. You know, they're looking on the horizon to their plan too. So I think we could help you out with that. So thanks, Christy.
One thing I wanted to jump in here really quick. This part is maybe one of our most important parts, is making sure, and I think you said it, but I want to reiterate it. We need to make sure that the information gets out in mass. I don't care if we oversaturate it. We're big hits because people are claiming that we don't give them the information. And I think if it even comes to that form in time where we are putting stuff in the paper, we're sending out papers on top of the stuff that Lisa said. So we oversaturate and have so much public input that we need to go somewhere else. We need to have.
That's what I'm thinking, Blake. If I step up and do it, we could put it and make sure it's everywhere. You know, and different places that different people go, the library, the grocery store, the post office, and have big posters or whatever to make sure everybody keeps up with it.
There is a surprisingly large part of our population who are not on social media. So it's important to catch those people as well.
Go to churches.
I think we could.
How's the paper? Do a lot of people read the paper?
Yeah, the Madisonian.
Yes.
Yep.
Our paper is Madisonian. I think a fair amount of people read the Madisonian. I don't know what their subscription rate is.
But they also have the digital version,
Yeah,
so we're getting both the facets of the community at that point in time. They're probably one we might reach out to Aaron?
Yep, if you reach out to
Aaron Leonard, and see if we can partner in with her and get her in the middle of this too. She would be a huge help.
And maybe there could be some, like Christy was saying, some posters or some flyers, but maybe that they're kind of generic and they say, you know, the Ennis master planning process is happening. And then here's more places to get information and list, you know, of course, the website link, or, you know, the library has information, or please come to town hall. So then that way we don't have to change out flyers a lot of times. So if we can have just some generic ones.
That's super smart.
How to get involved throughout this process, and then, you know, lead them to where they can find out, hey, the next meeting is, you know, this day. So point them in the right direction instead of having an old flyer like, oh, I just missed the meeting, you know, last Friday.
Yeah, that's great. That's all really helpful. Thanks. So yeah, I mean, I don't have much more at this time. I think it would be great if we could identify kind of some people from your end that are interested in helping craft this community engagement plan, and we can get together, you know, in a couple weeks or so and really nail down, because you know the best, you know, what's worked in the past, what hasn't, and we can go from, you know, build on what you know and then what we know, and make sure that we're getting as much input as we can for this plan to get some buy-in.
Well, that leads into the next item, because I don't want to leave this meeting without key contacts and contact information of who is going to do that. So Nicole, you were going to kind of lead these next two items on the agenda.
Yeah, sure. I think a really good way of thinking about who key contacts are and who steering committee members are is to think about it in two ways. One, we've got, you know, policymakers and leaders in the community, whether they're department heads or, you know, the commission members. But then there's also, you know, who are those key players in town? Who are the people that we want to engage personally in this planning effort so that we can get their buy-in sooner than later? And if they buy into the project, then they can help us spread the word efficiently and, you know, get the word out. You know, so I don't know who. When I say those sorts of things, does anybody come to mind? And then I have a few other prompts that I'd like to touch on too. So who comes to your mind as far as key contacts, you know, key players that we want to make sure that we include in the planning effort?
We have a number of people that are well qualified to do what you're asking, but they don't live in town. They have businesses in town, but they don't live in town. These are the ones we need because they're the ones that can get things rolling. Can they come to these meetings and bring forth their ideas?
Definitely. Yeah.
Because they're the ones with the knowledge of the town and how it's growing, and you know, no one else just seems to care. They'd rather listen to rumors. And I know a number of people in town that would be excellent for what they would like to see the growth be. And I'd like to see that be part of this project.
Let's hear some names.
Yeah, so I think Marshall Bettendorf at the Chamber is going to be a key.
I think Robin Blazer would be a good one as well.
Yeah, Robin and Willie Blazer from Willie's Distillery. Chris Gentry from Madison Foods.
Kelly's.
And
Amy.
John Heckler.
John Heckler.
And also Demo.
Yep, Demo. John, so Chris DeMichelle that owns Demos. John Heckler.
Josh Biovich probably.
Well, he's yeah, maybe. Let's see. So they go Amy and Scott Kelly. They own the brewery. Joe Dilschneider owns 2 fly shops in town. John Way would be a good resource as well.
I think you gotta include Melinda Merrill in there.
Yeah, she doesn't like a lot of things that are going on, but she would be good to bring her input in.
Yeah.
So that we can get it on the table so we know what we're talking about.
Absolutely. The more, the more people, I would say
Very
Alan Rohrbeck at the CEO of Madison Valley Medical Center.
I'm wondering if Brian Casey and from the school would be a bad idea as well.
Yeah, Casey Klasna, he's the superintendent of Ennis School District.
And I think when I think of stakeholders, it's not just residents of Ennis, it's business owners and even people that live around Ennis. And what comes to mind for me is people that own land and people that have money. And so.
Well, but then also we can't, not look towards, the people that actually live in Ennis and will be affected by these decisions made. And they don't just get to sit a shining hill, outside of town and, say you can or can't do this. So if there's a way to incorporate, maybe we can do something at the library with, there's a lot of young moms. I think there's books and babies, but if we can reach out to maybe some young families that way. I think someone said, I'm trying to think of
what about what about people who, like, when we say, when I hear this group say we'd like to take a look at Ennis parks and we'd like to improve, trail connectivity, who comes to your mind as being a good contact to talk to about parks or playgrounds or trail connectivity?
Let's see.
Lisa Roberts.
That used to be.
Yeah.
That was my jam.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's just what we need to know.
Corey, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Maybe if we're trying to acquire some land or definitely Roy Washburn.
Yep.
Goggins.
Yep, Patrick Goggins.
Hey, I have a quick question. Is a steering committee by invite through the town of Ennis, or is there something thrown out to residents to say if you would like to be involved in the planning process? How does that work?
Well, I think typically it's invite, but unless you think that there's a reason to make a call out to the public, I don't know. Maybe Dave or Nora, Wayne, have you had a experience where you make a call to the public?
What I would suggest is that it be coordinated, and I think we talked about this in our scope. We'd like for we can tell you who the types of folks, and Nicole is doing that now. But really, I think it should be put together by the town. And if you put a call out, there's either going to be nobody or there's going to be 100 people. And I think from a steering committee, you're going to want a really good cross section of the community. You've been talking about that. I've been writing down names. I guarantee you none of them are spelled right. So we'll need to get back with you on that. But we would like you to help put together the steering committee. But in addition to that, we're looking for you to, and we want to do in-depth interviews with 10 to 20 individuals that you want us to talk to. So those are just as important as well as the actual steering committee.
Yeah. I mean, one way to think about it is, the stakeholders and those interviews that Wayne was talking about, those are going to be people that our team reaches out to talk specifically, and have specific questions regarding maybe a particular subject matter. Like another one that comes to my mind is affordable housing. Like if there's a a staunch affordable housing advocate in the community, that would be the person that we want to know about, that we could call and we could ask them about what are some of the, things you've been working on or challenges, that kind of thing. And then the other group of people, and it may be part of the same group, is the steering committee, and the steering committee can, can review drafts, and they can, be sort of that, intermediate group of people between the public and the commission. So just to think about that, there's a number of opportunities for people to be involved, but there's, two distinct roles that we're looking to fill.
Can I ask the town to consider asking someone from the senior demographic, because that's a large part of the Ennis population?
That's a great suggestion.
Thank you, Karen. Nicole, how many people are on the steering committee? I think that would help us kind of.
On the steering committee,
Yeah.
to me, I think under 10. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Wayne is saying 7 to 10. Yeah. Under 10.
7 to 10.
Yeah, that's what because then we can look at someone, if you could help us, like, oh, you need someone from the business community, you need someone
Yeah.
from this sector. That will help us decide, because we also want to make sure that is representative of people who live in Ennis and how it's going to affect them. And so,
yeah, right.
So, and it is, a lot of our community leaders live outside of Ennis, but I think at the same portion, we got to find that balance.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. And we don't have to nail down what the steering committee looks like tonight. What we want to do is, we've got some names going, and since you are going to be our key to, identifying who those people are, we wanted to make sure we started the conversation and get that going. So are there, is there anybody else that you can think of that, we can keep in the hopper and,
I think Mike Casey, and who kind of works for Genera, or what's his last? Is that his last name?
Jan Genera, yeah.
Jan Genera.
He's got several holdings.
Okay.
In town, he owns probably close to 30% of the north side of downtown.
There you go. That's a great name. And then, what about developers or people who are, maybe in the trade industry?
Josh.
I would say Josh. He's the developer on North 40.
Gary's partner.
Oh, Paul McMullen?
Yeah.
Paul McMullen might be one. He's a longtime resident. He also did the Skyview subdivision.
And Gary Croy, who's his partner.
Yeah.
Okay. What about realtors?
One of the big things is, you can talk all you want. We can get all we want to get the people together. We gotta have the people and us in the same room. The same room. Now, there's a possibility that I could talk to John Hecker about using the movie theater, of bringing these people in so they can spread around without worrying about anything, and have them bring out what they think how they would like to see Ennis move forward, and get a group of people. But if you can't have a meeting with the people, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's what
I know, it's so hard. I know, I hear you, it's hard. But it is possible. I know it.
It is possible. If it was Zoom rather than go to meeting, I think we'll probably function a little bit better.
Ginger has got a list of people, and she said by the first next week she could probably have contact information for all the people that we were just shouting out. She was quickly writing them. She can get. She said she can get.
That's great.
Yeah. For realtors, I would say Melinda Merrill would be a good, possibly Ricky Dilsnyder as well.
Karina Christensen, yeah, Karina's been interested in all of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Laura Gilmore.
I think she's backing out. Not backing out, she's tapering off.
Oh, she's leaving. That's right. How about Don Mervick? I'm just throwing out names.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like all
Well,
of
we
those.
should.
But you don't want to totally saturate with realtors either.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, no. No.
If we would maybe call, 3 of them or whatever and say who would be interested, because.
Nicole, I wouldn't mind if you were to give us a worksheet, maybe asking for 2 individuals that are downtown business owners, or just kind of the dynamic that you're looking for with that.
Yeah.
And each of us could maybe fill that out like as homework, and then we obviously pick the names that show up the most, possibly.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And keep in mind, just because somebody isn't on a steering committee, right, or identified as a stakeholder, doesn't mean that they're not going to have an opportunity to be involved too. So just keep that in mind. But I want to move on to the next topic because to me, the hot button issues are where it's at. That's where all the good conversation is. And I know you guys have touched on them, so I'll turn it over.
Yeah, we did talk about a lot of the hot button issues, but I think, Dave, you've been quiet. You're going to lead this section. What we talked about before, what was missing out of it from as we're doing a comprehensive plan, master plan, growth policy, what was missing out of that discussion?
Yeah. And I also want to add, we did cover a lot of the issues with experts of the town. You all know very much about the town, but when we think of hot button issues, it's almost like what are we going to hear? What are the newspaper headlines going to be? What do people walk up to you in the street and talk about? So that's kind of how I want to frame it a little bit differently. What is the public going to say to us about some of these things? I've got a bunch of things kind of ready to go. If nobody wants, or if anybody has an idea to start with, go right ahead. But I can guide that conversation too.
Go ahead.
I was one of the items I was going to bring up from earlier was possibly a tourist tax. I think doing what's that?
Oh, sorry.
Resort tax.
Or resort tax, thanks. I think we have a couple of towns within the county that are moving forward with customizing a tax setup that works for everyone. Both of the towns, like Twin Bridges being one of the towns, and Virginia City just recently did a 1% increase on theirs. And I know, I think from what I understand in the past, when people actually presented it, it just really got misconstrued maybe. And I think for a professional organization such as Terrell Cushing, might possibly be a better way to bring to light tourist tax, resort tax.
That's a good example of what would be a hot button issue.
Well, that would be a hot button issue, but you are a tourist-based community, and I always tell people you're giving folks a free ride. Tourists would come and pay a tax and not think twice about it.
Absolutely. So I think the goal of this project and way to segue into that is to identify projects out of the master plan and then use how are we going to pay for this? And a resort tax is really the lowest hanging fruit. BC, Big Sky both have it. Anytime I go to a conference, they're like, why don't you have this? This is prime, Ennis is prime for that. So maybe identifying some of the projects. But to get back to Dave's question, I would say parking is a hot button issue.
Sidewalks are a hot button issue. Parklets.
Parklets.
Christy.
Don't say parklets.
Yeah, so those things, but I think
Signage and lighting. I don't know if that's a hot button issue.
zoning was a hot button issue, and but I think
Zoning's gonna be again.
but I think a lot of it stems from, and maybe a broader thing is transparency and getting the word out. So the greater community knows what we're working on. I think people get busy and they don't look at the avenues that we have. So I think a lot of those hot button issues stem from, a lack of information.
Yeah, I think if we get the real information out there, it'll be good to, contend with the false information that is floating around.
I think the other hot button issue we'll run into, Dave, is people don't want this to change.
Some people don't want.
Yeah, so some people don't want Ennis to change and they don't, yeah. We like our little small town, but they don't realize, the flood of stuff that is, coming down the pipe, so.
I think another hot button item would be possibly taking leaps if people perceive changes to the town as very rapid, or whether they perceive, like, if we were to even do at our crosswalks, like I honestly have almost regressed back to the point where we're just going to have a little container with flags in it, and people will grab those. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I really felt strongly about curb extensions. I thought those were a real good way of getting people out into the street so vehicles could see them. But
What a fight that was.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess like Lisa said, you could sum that all up is that there's a lot of people around here that just don't want to change a single thing.
Yep. How about the need for amenities, or the perception of amenities? What do people say that, that I don't want to keep driving to Bozeman for this or that, whether it's, a service like, youth services, mental health services, or retail? What's the word on the street with that topic?
You hear a lot that there's not a lot for families to do. That is one that you
Yeah.
hear quite a bit, that they have to take their kids to Bozeman or Sheridan to go to the swimming pool. I mean, that's
so that's one of the things I think with mental health services and social services in general. That's one of the things that, the lack of access makes it really difficult. So, if we don't have those specialists, we did have an eye doctor here for, a hot minute, and that was awesome because you could just walk down the street and get glasses, and now they're not here. So I think people utilize the services if they are here. I know it's really convenient to, be able to get my car serviced here, shop at the grocery store here. There might be a need for some variety and some of those things, but we're living in a feast or famine. The businesses are busy 3 months out of the year, and then they starve 9 months out of the year. So any of those services really you need to figure out a way to help them be year round, be sustainable.
And what about the community center initiative?
Yeah, so there is the Madison Valley Community Center. It's that initiative is being led by Lindsay DeGroot and Rachel Myers. They are looking to, potentially do a community center in Ennis. They're kind of starting out with their pie in the sky and trying to distill down If it's a way to integrate that into the master plan, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and we have talked about, a pool or something in the past. That was before my time, but you still hear people talking about that. You need somewhere for kids to go, even if it's just an open pool, or just a small pool or something, or like Lisa said earlier, just somewhere where they can go get wet. And we do actually have, there's a Ennis Hot Springs that could possibly be developed. It's been looked into, but
Splash park needs to be put in there too.
people do talk about it here and there.
Quickly back to the taxes and budgeting. Have you had to increase taxes? What's the kind of current tax impacts of the community, and when's the last time you've increased them, and what do people say about that?
So I would say the last major thing was the road maintenance district, right? Yes. So that was about 6 years ago. There was a road maintenance district installed. It's $75 for an improved lot and $35 for a non-improved lot. And I think there was a little kerfuffle about that, but not really too much.
All the monies went strictly for street maintenance.
Yeah, and I
Nothing else.
Yeah. So it's strictly for street maintenance. I'm of the mind that, I look at, where my family's kind of spread out across the United States. And so I look at different taxes of what they pay. And even compared to communities in our own county, like I think our taxes here in Ennis are relatively low as compared to Sheridan. So a house in Sheridan almost pays as double as amount as we do here in Ennis. So that being said, no one likes to pay more taxes. But,
As far as support for mills, for parks and schools, you think that there's probably
I
support?
would think so. I think it would have to be, it's a public relations game, is really that we're hearing, because there are people, because we've talked about, we do actually have plans for a little park over on Conley and Armitage Street that we were able to raise the funds for, and the town contributed, and other private citizens contributed, and some corporations contributed. And so we have this nice park plan. And so I think it's, again, transparency, what we're trying to do. And the school, I think all the school mills have been voted in favor of. So there hasn't been a mill to go past and be voted down. But I think with a lot of, new folks and whatever, the education of where the money's going. So that's the story.
And the last kind of thing we hear about often in towns like this is that, kind of keeping community, keeping the rural aspect. We talked about gateways. A lot of that is, preserving open space outside the town, and trying to reduce sprawl and making sure that that kind of open space character is intact. And obviously, as you start to subdivide out, what's the talk of the town with that kind of thing, that open space preservation versus subdivision?
We don't really have much of that because we have so much open space. Any way you come into town, whether it's from Norris Pass or VC Hill or even from Reynolds Pass, you just have so much open space in this valley, and when you get to town, it's not very big. So I don't think anybody's really thinking of that.
Yeah, I think we do.
So sorry guys, can I just throw in there? So there's a large amount of conservation easements around Ennis, which contribute to that open space, and I think that's of note. But it's also true that people from Ennis travel to recreate. I mean, they go to West to ski. They go, you can't just, except for a bike ride, 5 minutes out of Ennis to do any kind of developed recreation.
you know, oh, yeah, I would, yeah, really would agree with that, so.
That kind of leads into one of my last things here. I want to be respectful of folks' time, but the recreation impacts came up just now on the resort tax topic. But what's the local feeling for increased recreational impacts and what to do about it?
You know, I think it benefits our restaurants and our outfitters and stuff like, stuff like that, and is able to help, you know, those shops, those tourist dollars help, you know, them sustain throughout the winter. You know, the word on the street as far as resort tax, I think there are businesses that would really support it. They don't want to take the lead on that.
Did you ever get an opinion? I can give you a ton of opinions that
Yeah,
are
you got-
totally against what you're talking about.
But there's a bunch that go both ways.
And that's just it. I think there's people that would support it, but they're really quiet about it because, you know, the
Never
other ways.
saw one step forward.
Bancroft's an example of that. And so, you know, there's ways, you know, how Twin Bridges is looking at doing it is only taxing, guiding, prepared foods and
Lodging, food.
yeah, so there could be some ways on that. So those are the thoughts on that. And yeah, and increased recreation. I know that, you know, obviously there was the rule, we'll have to see how the new rules from FWP, the Madison regulations are.
That's all gonna get blown up again too.
Okay, yeah, so we don't know how, you know, like the Ennis Fishing Town Fishing Access Site, I think according to the River Fund gets and this statistic is a few years old, is like they get like 18,000 visits a year, maybe using more than that, but so the River Fund had quite a few statistics on that, because yeah, if you come here in the summer, everyone's got, you know, a boat trailer, a horse trailer, or they're got their, you know, we've seen a ton of snowmobiles through town, you know, stopping on their way to West. But yeah, people are, especially during COVID, people are looking to get out and recreate, so they're coming here, which is good and bad. You know, I think trails, you know, would be a really good thing. The Copper City trail system that they put outside of Three Forks, now they're building a, you know, entertainment venue, I think, there. So.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, sorry.
The Madisonian, Brian Vincent, was it 2009, put out a great article. He was on the commission at that time and did the resort tax. He did a great job of summing that up. I'll see if I can find my copy of that and send that over to you. You can see where a lot of the opposition and some of the people that liked it, you can see what we're really running up against. It was a great article. I mean, he was right in the middle of the whole thing and put out some things that he thought needed to be done better. And communication, again, was another one of those things, and what we were going to do with the money as far as that resort tax. Our number one problem, again, is communication.
Sure, I think on that, putting out a possibly a graph or something like that is easily readable by all individuals in the community. You know, just something. You know, nobody likes to hear taxes at all. So.
Yeah, and I guess I would caution, we don't want the issue that comes out of this master plan to say, people grab a hold of it and say, this is all about creating a tax. I've seen projects like that, and they don't go as well as if we can control the narrative, and the resort tax discussion might be a component or piece of the master plan. But if it gets sidetracked and becomes all about that, and the press grabs a hold of it as just a resort tax, then I don't think that's going to do the process well.
I mean, would you think, even if we look at maybe our town's budget, how currently struggling to find monies to pay for a zoning, to replace our zoning administrator is in the process of resigning in April. We're gonna have to fill those shoes. And I think it is gonna be a position that probably pays more than 15 an hour. And we're gonna need, I think instead of like just focusing on these tax dollars for projects for the town, we could even look at them more, I guess, just from employment standpoints to make.
Yeah, I think the issue is let's get all of these other things out. Let's get some momentum of people seeing the possibilities that might come out of this plan. And then they'll be faced with the hard and fast discussion of how are you going to pay for that? Grant sources can go so far. Some of the issues we talked about early in this discussion, wastewater, there's state funding for those issues. But the fact of the matter is, I come over to Ennis 2 or 3 times a month. I got a free ride. I'm not paying any taxes. I'm just coming through and I'm enjoying what you have. And there's 100,000 other folks like me throughout the course of the year that are enjoying your community, but we're not helping to pay for it. We're impacting it, and you guys are on the hook of trying to figure out how to provide sidewalks for your kids to get to school. So I think the way to do this is to let's get people's input. Let's get them excited about some of the things that can happen, and be frankful with them that while we can raise some money, but probably the only way that a lot of these things will get done is some form of a resort tax.
One of the things I'd like to mention, Wayne, is like out of this master plan, I guess, we want to come up with stuff that is tangible. I don't want it to be a plan that just says, oh, that was a great idea. We came up with some really cool stuff, we need to have some tangible takeaways and lined out in an easy, maybe phased process that our small community can handle, instead of saying,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to do these 10 projects. I'd rather have 4 good ones lined out. And so you have that, I guess, almost a sense of accomplishment. I think that was one of the things, like with the aquatic center, is the community was really excited about that for a really long time, and then unfortunately, it didn't come to fruition. And so we need a win. We need a couple of wins.
Yeah, and I think again, you've crafted this RFP as a master plan. It was not put out as a comprehensive plan. It was not put out as a growth policy update. What I've heard you describe all night long is items that are more project driven. You're looking for a project driven narrative and a project driven result of a master plan. What's out there? What can you do, and what can this make recommendations for that ultimately is going to improve the community the way you want it to improve. So it's project driven.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you.
One more thing to consider with that, if I could just mention it really quick. One of the things that I've found to be super helpful for communities when they're considering these long range plans is to make sure that we have some action items for implementation, right? So it's like, okay, what's the first step here?
Yeah.
What makes the most sense to get that ball rolling? And so I think that that's an important piece to the puzzle here. So we can come up with some great ideas, but helping you figure out that roadmap forward is also important.
Absolutely.
So let's let's talk about the kind of the next issue here. We're at 10 after 8, or 5 after 8. Over the course of the next couple of months, we're going to again focus on public outreach and trying to gather information. I think that you're going to spend a lot of time with Nora, and we're going to want to. Nora's going to be leading this particular phase. We're going to want who are the 1, 2, and 3 contacts that Nora needs to be working with. Lisa, you kind of stepped forward early on, but who are those people that Nora needs to be reaching out to?
I think Christy wanted to be there to help Nora with the public outreach and getting that. Ginger, of course, our clerk, she keeps us all organized. So information needs to get to her as well. And then who else wants to step into the fray?
I think Lisa.
I'm not wondering if Karen would be a good, got a lot of, and Karen, yell out if you're not excited about that, but
I think Karen.
Interaction with the public too.
So I'm sorry, I heard my name, but I didn't hear what you volunteered me for.
To help with the public outreach.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll help however I can.
Okay, so Ginger, we're gonna reach out to you. Nora, if you could come online here. I'm gonna want you to reach out to Ginger and get contact information for Christy, Lisa, Karen, and I think we'll begin this process. So we'll try to focus over this next 1 to 2 months, and then we'll be identifying and trying to work with you for a good date to come back around on a couple of these things. But really, we're going to be doing a lot of public outreach, individual talking with the public and what.
Yeah, Wayne, I think I'll reach out to you, Ginger, if that's fine. And we've got like kind of a spreadsheet going of these identifying these stakeholders, and if that spreadsheet gets passed around to everyone that has a say, and you know, we've got a list that we've been scribbling down through this meeting, but like Wayne said, they're probably all misspelled and lots of incorrect references, but it would be great if we could get that passed around and filled out with contact information for all of these stakeholders. I think that's probably the first step, and then we can start to identify who this steering committee, who will be on the steering committee.
Sounds good, Nora. I took those names down as they were saying them also. So probably by the first part of next week, I'll have information on everybody that I wrote down as well.
Awesome. That's amazing. Thank you.
Are there any last items you guys want to talk about that we maybe haven't touched on before we get off the line tonight? You've all been great, and this has been tremendous information. I've got about 10 pages of handwritten notes here.
Yeah, you guys have done awesome. We look forward to the partnership, and hopefully we can pull something great off here.
I just want to kind of reiterate on the fact that we're going through a zoning change right now. So that may work into the master plan a little bit. I don't know how much, but.
What's the timeline for the zoning change?
We'd love to get it done as soon as we could, but you know, if there's a way to get input, it's gonna, yeah. What would you say?
It's
by
not
the
just
fall?
We're hope.
Yeah, I would say by the fall.
It's not just a zoning change, it's kind of a
Zoning rewrite.
a complete zoning rewrite and overhaul.
Okay.
We're doing a map amendments and all kinds of stuff, so.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big project right there. Okay. Yeah. And it said you're going through it, you're going through some transition and on zoning, but are you wanting to consider design standards? Is that something you're wanting us to take a look at?
Actually, yes, I think that would be a great way, you know, our current code is really, we have this overlay district that's really vague. And so like, if you get a council that's super strict, we'd have super strict regulations. And then if you don't, then you don't. So that would be amazing in helping us out to say, you know, this is what we're going for. And then if we could put it in the professional language, that would be fantastic. Or have recommendations of how to, you know, how to maintain our, you know, integrity as a, you know, small western town, but knowing that we're growing at the same time and striking that balance. So, because there's a lot of folks that, in my mind, you know, they moved here, they built business here, they're raising their families here, and now we're seeing external pressure of people who aren't going to live here, and aren't going to deal with things that are built. And
Yeah.
so, and how your built environment really does have a significant impact upon your life.
I think it would be important to make sure that we communicate the distinction between the zoning effort and the master planning effort too, just so that the community doesn't get confused about the effort. So just keep us updated on how that is moving forward.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Yes, appreciate it.
Okay,
Thanks.
bye.
Okay.
Good night.
That was a lot.
Well, it was pretty amazing that they had like 4 people online.
Or there was like 6 of them there.
I didn't know if that
There's a couple of them that never talked.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so,
Yes, ma'am.
How are we doing the executive?
We're going into executive session, shut everything down.
are we
Turn it
gonna,
all off.
Yep.
so,
Well, you need.
I think you would make it to announce that on the,
Yeah.
so this,
Well, we never even opened it. Okay, we are going into executive session now, so all recordings will be stopped.
Are you gonna continue after the executive session, or are you going to?
This will be the executive session, we'll end the meeting.
Thank you.
So you
You just
got
have to pry out of me what you want.